Hello there, welcome back to the channel. It's Nerdworld Empire, and today looking at a type of Starfleet vessel which we recently learned about. This was, by all accounts, a variant of the Constitution class. Now, to put Starfleet into a bit of context on this, virtually every major classification of starship has variants. Let me explain. The obvious and most famous would be something like the Galaxy class starship had the Nebula class as a variant. Now, I know they don't initially look like a variant, but in this case what I mean by variant is they take the basic components of that ship, reorganize them, and build something new. This means you streamline production. Basically, you don't have to build two completely different space frames on every level. This allows for interchangeable parts, it allows for ease of repair, it allows for ease of manufacturing, ease of production. Basically, the more ships you can have utilizing as many similar or same parts, the better. But you reorganize them, add a little bit to this one, subtract a little bit from this one, add something else to it, create another one that has bits of both. And what you get are hybrids that are specialized in different areas. For example, a Nebula class was a bit more of a combat-orientated variant of the Galaxy class. Its more compact hull and more sturdy space frame lent itself to more robust missions. In the case of the Sombra class, this was a vessel that, like others, like the Nebula to the Galaxy, took parts of the Constitution class and slightly reorganized them, although the variation here was fairly minimal. The ship was similar in proportions to a Constitution class starship, but was again designed more for tougher missions. That said, it was not an out-and-out warship and was still used for many scientific missions. So this was very common with Starfleet. Even combat vessels like a Defiant class warship would still be utilized for scientific and research purposes. When they didn't have an enemy to fight, you might as well have them double. Now, the type of missions these vessels could undertake would usually be less stellar, pun intended, than the kind of missions that a Galaxy class starship could undertake, but nonetheless, for the minor roles, local missions, little things you need to do on a day-to-day basis, and the warship doesn't have training exercises, someone to fight or war to engage in, you might as well utilize it to do the little things to stop the bigger ship having to come up its mission and go and check that a few particles of space dust are looking a little bit neater, for example. So the Sombra class seems to fit that billing. It was, on this occasion, in 2259, it was outside of Federation space. The vessel in question here is the USS Peregrine, NCC 1549. This starship of the Sombra class was outside of Federation space, mapping star systems and general activities beyond the border. The ship had a crew of 99 officers, including its commanding officer, Captain Alice Gavin. The Peregrine would pick up 3 castaways on a planet well mapping territory outside of Federation space: an Orion, a human, and an alien of unknown origin. Unbeknownst to the crew, the Orion was infested with Gorn eggs. Now, Gorn eggs gestate at different speeds depending on the species that they are contained within, and in this case it took a while. Realizing that he was infected, he, instead of telling them and asking for help, decided to try to kill the Gorn by blowing himself up. He did this in the worst possible place aboard a starship. Not that there's a good place to do it aboard a starship, but he did this in main engineering. It caused a major issue with the starship. It caused the vessel to have to make an emergency crash landing on a nearby planet, killed many people, and the ship sent out an automated distress signal. Once Starfleet picked it up, a few days later, they dispatched the USS Enterprise under the command of Captain Christopher Pike to find out what had happened to the Peregrine. Upon arrival, they found that the atmosphere was impenetrable, so transporters had to shuttle it down. The Enterprise had to carry on its emergency relief mission, so Pike and co were kind of stuck with the Peregrine. They found that there were no survivors, at least they didn't think so, no Starfleet ones anyway. They found 2 of these civilians, including the human girl and the unknown alien whose language they couldn't understand, were now the only survivors aboard the ship. But they were scared and not exactly communicative. Long story short, It turns out there were other survivors in the form of some baby Gorn nesting inside of the unknown alien. They would erupt and begin to kill off members of the crew, to which one of the personnel, Lana Noonien Singh, would be kind of annoyed at the human girl for not telling them about this and for not warning Captain Alice Gavin at the threat that was posed by the Gorn to her crew, and for not warning them, for that matter, of the current threat. The Gorn hatchlings would begin to grow rapidly and instinctually begin to feed, killing one another but also attacking any crew members that they could find as a source of food, and even infecting more personnel, as it turns out that Gorn hatchlings are capable of infesting others with more Gorn eggs. But the Peregrine herself would eventually be rescued and recovered from the planet when the USS Enterprise arrived and the Gorn had been defeated. All the crew of the Peregrine had been killed, the last few remaining souls aboard the ship sacrificing themselves in an effort to kill off the remaining Gorn hatchlings and save the 2 civilians they had aboard ship. Whereas really they were just condemning them to a slow death on the planet, but that's besides the point. Sombra class vessels, as I said, were a variant of a Constitution class. We can assume that they had shields, hull armor, weapons and phasers that were comparable to those of a Constitution class, but as the vessel was said to be a slightly more combat orientated ship, we might think and suppose that it is a slightly more heavily armed variant of a Constitution class, and there were enough differences, albeit perhaps subtle ones, between the 2 ships to warrant the vessel being classified to a different class of starship. How many Sombra class vessels the Federation and Starfleet would produce is not yet known, and although I doubt the Peregrine was the only one, it might have been for all we bloody know. The ship, though, was salvaged, and although badly damaged, was able to be repaired and re-enter service. These events took place in 2259. The exact commissioning date of the starship is unknown, as is its decommissioning as well. And that is the USS Peregrine, at least what we know about it so far. It might appear in future adventures and stories that we may yet learn about, but as of right now, that's pretty much all we know about this ship.
I just want to take this moment to thank you for watching that video. If you liked what you saw, please check out my social links in the description box below to Instagram and Twitter and others, and also is down there a link to my Patreon page where you can support this channel and the others as I try to grow this franchise and do this more regularly. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, thank you for watching, and bye bye.